going to devote our energies to sports and gardening, all the cultural pursuits as far as they're concerned. In fact, we're going to put the goons to sleep. Meanwhile, we dig.
Greetings and welcome to the Anadromist and Georgian Crossroads. This is kind of a double header. Two different channels kind of coming together, although this particular video will only be found on the Anadromist. And what I'm going to do is there will be 3 parts to my saga of trying to find a place to live here in Tbilisi, trying to find a more permanent place and a better place. Someplace I can bring my rather large library from Alaska to Georgia, someplace permanent where I can put things, or at least as permanent as they can be for now. So what I'm going to do is make 3 videos, and the first one is this one, which will give you the story of what it was like trying to find a place here in Tbilisi. So what I'm going to do with those videos is put them over on Georgian Crossroads, and there'll be links right up here, and then here again, to go watch them. I'm putting them all up at once, or at least 2 of them up at once, this one and another one. And I'm going, maybe I will put them all up at once. We'll see. So I thought what I would do is here on the Anadromist, since people have been more involved in the story, I'm going to give you the kind of the details, both the emotional, sociological, philosophical, any other details, theological details of my quest for a new and somewhat permanent place to live, or new and permanent place to live. That proved to be impossible. Now, some of you have been watching the updates, you know bits and pieces of the story, but what I'm going to do here is give you the real effect all of this stuff had on me. So, last you may remember, it was about May 2021, and May and June I was collecting money from GoFundMe. People, especially you folks on the Anadromous channel, were generously giving to me and put me over my goal of $10,000. It was closer to 11 or 12. And so I felt good. Now, unfortunately, the inflation system and the havoc wreaked by the big pandemic have created a kind of turmoil here. Also, I was going by the fact that, as I mentioned in my original video to try to raise money for, to get my container here, before I could get my container here, I had to find a better place to live, a more permanent place at least. And then I could bring my container here. And I was kind of allotting about, I don't know, $7,000 as a down payment here on, yeah, that sounds ridiculously cheap by American standards, but it would have worked. And it would have worked for what I eventually ended up finding, had some of the laws not been in my favor. So what I did was, we went until about the end of July, and then I said, okay, this is it, that's the end. Although a little bit of money did trickle in after that in like September, October, or, so there you go. I suppose it's still active, but who knows. So, so one of my problems was to get money here from American money, and that was not going to be easy since my bank, First National Bank in Alaska, is very much paranoid. Security conscious, and for good reason. They did not get trapped in the 2008 real estate bust. They didn't make those kind of loans. So, and they remain that way. I can't, to this day, I cannot check my bank account without a VPN. And that's because they will not allow me to access my bank from a computer in Georgia. That's a good reason to get a VPN if I ever heard one. So, this was going to end up being a problem. But first of all, at the beginning of August, I was optimistic. And I thought to myself, okay, well, let's start looking for a place. I had been looking in the real estate classifieds, not the ones that sold to Americans, because those were always more expensive. Like if you just simply type in, want to buy real estate Tbilisi, Georgia, most of the sites that are on the top there are going to get you. Whereas if you look a bit further down, you'll see sites like myhome.ge or ss.ge. And the fact that they're further down tells you these are looked at more by Georgians and not by expats and other Anglophones. And they tend to think that everyone who is an American has more money than they know what to do with. And maybe some of them do. I don't. So around the beginning of August, I went with one friend who works with some of the theaters here, and she came up with me. The first place I was going to see was in Vake. Now Vake is one of the best neighborhoods, if not the best neighborhood in Tbilisi. It was where all the Soviet hierarchy liked to live. And when you drive up Chavchavadze Avenue, it still has this kind of upscale feel. Also, Abashidze Avenue has an upscale feel. And there's a lot of nicer stores there. There's also a lot of the same kind of, Spar and Nikora and all these other stores that you see everywhere. For some reason, those things are just like locusts. They spring up everywhere. But there was like a big Carrefour store up here, which for Georgians, that's a pretty big deal. For French people, where it comes from, they're like, we don't ever want to go to Carrefour unless we have to. And that's just life. So I remember getting a sinking feeling. I was thinking to myself, yes, we're going to Vake. And it seemed to have what I needed. What I needed was about 100 to 90 to 100 square meters. That's feet times 3. And I figured that was the minimum that I would need for to bring my library here from Alaska. Well, turns out that we were descending on the other side of Vake Park. There's this big Soviet-era building, and on the other side of that, there's a down-the-hill section, which is probably the darkest, weirdest section of Vake. Didn't know it existed prior to that. Although I had a hint, because I remember as I would take the bus, I would sometimes see these skeletal remains of buildings that never got finished, and they were in this one area. And so as we were going down, I was looking directly up at one of those skeletal buildings that were just big cement frames, 14, 15 stories tall, that had probably been started back around 2005 or 6 during the Misha Saakashvili years, and never got finished. Someone, for whatever reason, things got weird, and so they never were finished. And I'm down there, and we went to a different building there that was kind of a Khrushchevka, which is one of those big, ugly Soviet-era buildings from the 60s and 70s. And as we were going in there, I just got this sinking feeling like, this is not where I want to be. Well, anyway, we found the place, and this is when I discovered that but 90% of the real estate listings were showing you things using wide-angle photo lenses, so nothing looked exactly like it did in the photos. Well, we ended up in there. Now, I have rarely felt so depressed going through a house as I did this one. One of the reasons is because there was clearly a young man in a bed there who had some various serious issues of mental retardation, and or something like that. It was just a mother, and she was there, and looked like some other family member. But as they took us around, I just started getting this feeling of being enclosed. And there was a downstairs, and I could have, just on pure space alone, it seemed possible. But for one thing, it seemed a little too high for my budget. It was around $60,000. That didn't seem worth it. And so I thanked her, and we left, and we walked up the hill to where the buses are, and we took a bus back. Just, that was not a good beginning. And that wasn't the only time I would run into this situation where you'd enter someone's house and you just felt like, oh my goodness, I'm entering into their life. They're not like ready to move or anything like that. They're simply hoping. And I just couldn't see it. Well, I kept looking at things. Now, here's the problem. I didn't want to use that one friend. You see, because I was not using agents and using the websites I was using, everything was basically you'd call up and you had to speak Georgian fluently to make arrangements and then to go there and talk to people. And I don't speak Georgian that well at all. So I always had to get a friend to do it for me. Here's the problem, though. For one thing, there was, what was it? There were about, let's see, for one thing, my friends seem to be, it's like August and September coming up, and everybody seemed to be going somewhere. This is a bit, not quite as bad as France, where everyone takes a vacation, but kind of like that. And I didn't want to use the same person all the time because I would burn them out. Who wants to help burn that much? And it turns out nobody. And so I ended up having to wait a month and a half. I had one friend who said she would help. And she said, well, and I went and saw a place that I really liked. It was not too far from the Marjanishvili metro stop, maybe about a 10-minute walk. And I thought, wow, this place is pretty cool. There were some issues with it, but it seemed big enough. And it was in a pretty nice neighborhood. There were some issues, but nevertheless, I felt all right. And my friend had come with me to this place. Now, here is where the problems start. Let's see, I'm trying to get the order straight here. Okay, actually, I had to wait a month and a half for my friend. So there was a month and a half wasted. My other friends who were capable of helping me, my good friend Sandro left town, went to Norway for 6 months. Okay, and it was just like that. Everybody was doing something. So I lost it a month and a half right there. That gave me plenty of time to look at things. And then, actually, I had sent a couple of my listings that I had found to my friend, another female friend. And this is a typical Georgian story. She said, oh, it's really good. We can go see them next week. Next week comes, she disappears. It's September now. I don't hear from her for 2 weeks. Turns out her skin is just completely pale. She's indoors all the time. She goes to the beach. Two of her friends kidnap her and take her to the beach on the Black Sea. She spends 12 hours in one day out on the beach and basically starts getting blisters and such and headaches and vomiting from too much sun. So she was out of the loop for a while longer. I'm trying to remember where the money situation became an issue. It was right after she kind of came back so it was around the beginning of October. So it's now almost 2 months. I've got lists of places that I'm looking for, but I can't call any of them. And eventually my friend who made the mistake with the son didn't even have any sunscreen on. Came back and said she would help me, and I was, well, wonderful, please. And so we went to this one place, and this is near Marjanishvili, the Marjanishvili stop. We went in there, and I looked around, and it was an older building, which I liked. I didn't want to move into a new place. I hate the new places. They're just too square and white, and nothing bores me more than that kind of thing. So we went to the woman, and so now here's how it works. So you have to go to the place, decide you want it, then go to the bank and see if the bank will give you permission to get a loan. So that's what I did. We went to the bank, I went to the bank, and they said basically, well, for you, it's going to be 30%, not 10% or 12% of that you have to put down, which was more money than I figured. So now what had happened, okay, this is how it went. In that month-long period, I had spent a certain amount of time getting my money from, that's what I was doing in July, is I spent all this time getting my money from Alaska, about $10,000 worth, to Georgia. But I couldn't do it through, my bank just didn't want to simply make a bank transfer. They just very skeptical of sending any money to Georgia. But what they did was they gave me a special dispensation to take $1,000 a day out for like 10, 15 days. I had to get an extension. And the funny thing is, so I'd go to the bank, I could take out actually American dollars, but I couldn't take out 1,000 because they added another, what was it? It ended up, they added something like $25, $30 every time I did that. But they would just add it on, and then my bank would see that that was $1,000, $30 or whatever, and they said, nope, you can't have that. So I'd have to take out 900. So I was just caught in this weird loop of trying to get things to Georgia, and I didn't do it in time because I missed a few days, so I had to get an extension from the bank to take more time to do it. That's what I did in like July. August comes, and I was just waiting and kind of looking at, people were saying, Byrne, did you find a place yet? And I was like, no. And if you hear me getting a bit down at this point, this is what was beginning to happen to me, and I'll get more into this in a moment. So then, what happens is, I know I want this place over by the Marjanishvili Metro. I go there, and then they say, it's not 10% you need, or 12% or something like that. You need to put 30% down because you're from another country. And that was just like, oh. Fortunately, a friend of mine, who shall remain nameless, back in Alaska, although he was working counting tortoises at the time, told me that if I really needed it, he had given me a generous gift a few years earlier. And he told me if I really needed it, I could borrow $10,000 from him. And I looked at that and I said, well, that's pretty much what I need. So I got into, so from the moment that I went there in the beginning of October till the time, here's what I've got to do now. Get in touch with my friend that I did. He did check his email. He then had to spend a little time getting the money transferred to my bank because he was out in the field, had to come in, transfer the money, and then I got it. And now we're back in the situation where I have to go through the $1,000 a day again for 15 days or so, because I couldn't do exactly $1,000 a day. Then my bank even gave me an extension, but there was a limit on how much this bank would let me take out. So, we'll just skip to the chase and say that a month and a half goes by. So it's now near the end of November. at this point, I'm burning out my dear friend who's helped me. I'm looking for more places and going with her, but I can tell I put too much. She's doing too much. But I did have a friend who lived near me who suddenly volunteered to help. His name is Alexander and his wife Hatuna, and their two children. And he is English and Austrian, grew up in Brussels, speaks Georgian fluently. His wife is Georgian. I wish I knew that many languages. Anyway, he starts pitching in to help me, realizing I'm kind of getting stuck here. And so we went to one place. Well, when I was with my other friend, we did end up at another house where it was just really depressing. And we went in there, and there was literally, I think, 6 people living in they said it was 90 meters, but there was no 90 meters there because some of it was outdoors they were counting. And but there was a man in a bed and laying there like a hospital bed in one of the rooms. And in Georgia, people can't afford, the kind of hospital rooms that you find in America that end up bankrupting people at the end of their lives. So they just, let the older folks die at home. And it's just the way it is. I had a friend next door to me, a guy named Georgi. I think I could say that because half the guys here are named Georgian, so no one's going to figure out who he is. But his mother died next door to me at her home. That's just life here. There's no special thing. And having done something similar with my mother back in Alaska back in 2015, Georgi and I bonded over that fact because we realized we're staring at the real thing, what life is about. But no, there were several other places that I went to. There was one place that was really hopeful up in this small town, Okrokana. I hope I said that right. But it was a little town just above Tbilisi. I really liked the location of where I thought it was. And then we got there, and it turned out to be just this square, soulless box stuck, not where I thought we were, but in another spot up there. And I just said no. And it was just, right here in my new place, I have, people above me. But the walls are so thick. But there it was just depressing. It was just so depressing. And I just didn't want to go there. Anyway, I started going with my friend Alexander, and we ended up at this place that was over by what's called Station Square, the central train station. And that's also one of the biggest bazaars here, a bazaar in Bazroba. Bazroba is where you sell stuff that's not food, and bazaar is where you sell the stuff that was. Deserter Bazaar is the official name of it. So I ended up going over there, and I document this really well in one of my videos. And I thought I had it. The place was about $40,000, and I could do this. I had the down payment. I had it all together. I was ready to go. It was in a good location, central for transportation. The bazaar was next door. It wasn't exactly a plush area, but it wasn't a bad area either. It was fairly central. Metro, buses, everything was right there. So I went to the bank with Alexander and his wife Hatuna. I told Hatuna that I remembered her name because there was an old American band called Hot Tuna. Sometimes you have to do what you can to remember names. But so we went in there, and I got in before when they told me the 30% thing, and no one had bothered. They didn't look at me and ask how old you are. This time they did. They discovered I was 66 years old. I was surely getting older by the day in this process. And then they told me that you'd have to pay, they don't have any outstanding debts after the age of 70. So you would have to, and I talked to a Georgian guy who's about my age, and he had just got a loan from the bank that he'll have to pay off in 4 years or so, like me. I would have to have paid off the whole thing in 4 years, which, like I say, if I was a more well-heeled American, that wouldn't be a problem. But you can tell, but what I'm looking for is I'm not looking for expensiveness here. I'm looking for something that'll meet my needs. And basically they said you would have to pay this off in 4 years, and you would have to pay, $1,000 or more, maybe $1,200 a month. Plus, they were putting about 13% interest on this, the bank was. Now here's the deal. I'd already gone with the owners of this place, a guy named Levon and his father, went to a notary where I gave them $1,000 US, which I wasn't going to get back if I backed out of it, which I'm about to here. Spoiler alert. And but there was a system. I had to go to a notary to make I had to put the money down to let them know I was serious. And I was very serious. I was ready for this place. It was in an interesting old courtyard. If you want to see what it looked like, go to the second video. But when they told me that, now here's the thing. If it was just between me and this guy Levon, just going through the notary without any interest, I could have done it. It would have been about $400 or $500 a month, which wouldn't have taxed my life. I'm living on Social Security, limited income, which does go far here, but not far enough to make me feel real comfortable at $1,200 a month at all. So, what happens? Well, I have to call Levon, and he keeps my $1,000, but he lost $1,000 putting it. He thought he was finally someone's bought my place, so he wanted to get a bigger place out near Vake, the metro station out there. He put money on that. So at least he got to keep $1,000 and he didn't lose it because he had a family and two daughters and a wife, and he needed all of his money more than I did. So I was glad of that. But in all of this time of waiting around and waiting for friends and friends, having to impose on people, I was starting to get really down. And, I was making videos all this time, but I wasn't letting any of this really seep through. I was starting to feel really, it's just like, what am I doing here? Do I really have any friends here? How come I can't get anything done? Why am I stuck? These are the kind of things going through my head. Now, at the same time, I said, I have friends here. And I know I'm supposed to be here. And, there would be the others, devil on one side and angel on the other. Although it should be the other way around. Angel on the side, devil on the other. But I was just... Also, what I had done back in August is I spent that month packing up all my books that I had bought since I'd been here, which is quite a few because, all the Georgian stuff, Georgian art books, books about the history of Georgia and other related books. And then when I would find books on subjects that were dear to my heart, I'd buy those. And I had also been using Amazon and other vendors, Abe Books and such, to get books. I knew what I needed for my larger library. So I was saying, let's not just waste time. Let's get some of those things here. So over the last 3 years, jeepers, it's been that long, I've been, not just lying still. I haven't been sitting there just staring at the screen the whole time. If I had, I think I would have lost it entirely. And so I'd spent August, September, October, November, 4 solid months separated even from my library here, and except for whatever I had on the computer as far as music, I had been saving movies and such, but I never knew when I was going to go, and I never knew if I would ever go from my other place. And I was just starting to feel, plus, August and September were still quite hot as far as the weather went. And I was actually quite glad when October came. It felt like things would change, but they still went on and on. And that just started to weigh me down. And then I find out I can't buy a place unless I'm going to put the whole $40,000 down. Well, as soon as I found that out, literally within a day, I have a thing inside of me that when something happens, I don't stick around to argue. I often think of David and these mourning and praying over the death of his, or the life of his baby. And then as soon as it's done, he's done. And I often think of that because I've gone through situations in life where, indeed, the situation is really weird, but then as soon as it's done, I'm like, okay, now we know where we are. You see, I think that's the thing that gets us, is the not knowing where we are. It's just like if someone just said, nope, you can't buy a place here. If someone had told me, when I was first going, it's just like, yeah, it'll be 30%. Oh, wait a minute. Are you almost 70? I'm 66. Yeah, I got 4 years to go. Sorry. Now, if they just told me that would have saved me a lot. But turns out I needed the money from my friend, who gave me very generous terms. I'm not going to go into it, but essentially I don't really owe anything except to get the money back at some point in the not too distant, I hope, future. So here's the deal. Backup plan. And like I say, I have this mindset that when something happens, you don't stick around in the past any longer. So, the virus comes. My mindset changed instantly. I said, okay, this is the new where we are. This is who we are now. This is going to be difficult. Let's see what it does, but let's not panic at all. Once I was driving a bus full of 14 people on a road in Alaska. I was taking a turn, and one of the tires suddenly had a major blowout that shredded the tires. And I went from, okay, folks, I'm giving them a tourist talk, to suddenly going, I have to keep the car on the road. That's all that matters now. And then as soon as that's done, I immediately got on the phone. There was another bus behind me, and I said, you got to pick up my people. I'm going to sit here and wait for the tow truck. And then I told the people, and so, I immediately just like, okay, we're here. We're not there, we're here. That's how I found best to deal with situations when they change beyond what you're expecting, is not to sit around and bemoan those facts, but simply, okay, now we're living in a different mode. So my different mode was, I had already been thinking, worst comes to worst, what do I do? Can't find a place, what do I do? Look for a place to rent. Find the best place for the money and the size in the best possible neighborhood, and do that. So I had already started looking for the alternative, and the second I found that out, I just went home immediately and said, let's look for a place to rent. I wish I'd known that, back in August or whatever. It would have changed everything. But here we are. We're in the new place. So I'm looking, and I'm sitting there seeing furnished apartments with big, heavy furniture, a lot of kind of wardrobes on the wall, chiffon-robes, I think you'd call them, or armoires are another name. Big, bulky, shelves and stuff on the wall for people who like to put, I don't know, pieces of pottery on the wall or something, plates with gilt edges, certainly not books. In other words, all these places, I'm looking at them and I'm going like, that's more than I want to spend. I was spending $300 a month where I was. I said, that's more than I want to spend. And not only that, it's more than I should spend. And one day I'm looking at, I think it's myhome.ge, and it may have been ss.ge. And I'm looking at a page of things that are, that kind of fit what I'm doing. And I'm going all through the different zones I would live in, different districts. And I'm looking and I see, suddenly, it's really strange. This, this listing shows up And it says for commercial space. Now, I didn't tick off commercial spaces. It wasn't part of my filtering process. I had done that before and come up with some interesting ideas. I was thinking more like a New Yorker, because I had spent time in New York. It's just like, let's get a loft. Let's get one huge room. I'll do that. I can do that. But I saw this empty place in Vake, and it said commercial. But somehow it ended up on the regular residential, flat listings. And I looked at that and I said, well, it says commercial. And I had my friend Alexander call up and I said, quick, get this, call up and talk about this place. See if they would be open to having someone move in who wants to live there. And just to sweeten the pot, say, I'll pay. It was, here's the thing, $300 a month. And not only that, I looked at where it was on the map, and it was in Vake, right next to the park, not the dark part I'd been to earlier. I remember at that point coming home and telling my friend Jason, I said, yeah, there goes the Vake dream. And later I go like, yeah, there goes the Marjanishvili dream. And I told him, there goes the Okrakana dream. But this time, it was back in Vake. And I went there and I looked around saying, like, I knew this area. I only about less than a month earlier, I'd been going up there to Blauenstein to get some steaks because it was like one of the best butchers in town. And I remember looking down this one street going like, I would really love to live in this neighborhood. Guess what? That's where I'm at, where it is. That's where I am. And it helped to say I would pay a year in advance. That helped. That was kind of like the clincher. When they heard that, they were like, oh, yeah, you can move in. Because I'm sure they, like everybody else, has been suffering from this. And because I had saved up a certain amount of money, I was ready to go as far as like doing something like that. Now, some of the things I would have to do is I would have to take this empty space, and I'm showing you photos right now of the empty space, and then I would have to get some new furniture for it. And it wasn't going to be the heavy, bulky furniture. I already bought one nice chair here about a year and a half ago, but I had to go out and I had to actually buy an oven because all they had was a stovetop range situation. Then I had to buy a couch. I had to buy a television set since the one I'd been using, or a screen, big screen. The one I'd been using was over in, I had to leave behind. It was part of the furniture of my other place on Zaldistanishvili. And I needed one for my work, both watching films and studying them, but also looking at my videos to see if they looked good when blown up. Although the joke about that is everyone's going to be looking at this on screen. And I was like, I didn't make it to be looked at on a phone. I made it to be looked at seriously. So take that for what it's worth. But anyway, now, by the 15th of December, we'd signed the contract, and it was mine to move into, and I spent from the 15th of November to the 1st of the year basically sleeping at the other place, and I'd done one load of moving here, brought the chair over here, had deliveries. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you how nightmarish getting deliveries are here, because I think Georgians don't ever use maps. I think what they do, given the times, is that they just simply say, give me the exact street number. And then they go to that pin on their, GPS, navigator or whatever they're doing. Well, that's fine, except my address is Chavchavadze Avenue, but the actual entrance is on another street, Dariali. So you wouldn't believe how insane it has gotten waiting for deliveries. And then they keep, they'll call up someone who's not speaking English. I'm speaking as I'm at the edge of my Georgian, trying to communicate to them, going, Ara Chavchavadze, Dariali Da Mosashvili. You know, I'm saying Mosashvili and Dariali, go to that corner, I'll be there. They're not going to the corner. Then they'll get someone, and this has happened several times, without fail. Someone will call up, speaks some English, and they'll say, can you just give us the number? And I said, I have, but it's not on Chavchavadze Street. And at that point of Chavchavadze Street, it is illegal to even stop. And it's just like, oh, it really makes me absolutely detest navigators and GPSs, because people become so stupid and reliant. We're putting our brains into the stuff we're making, and then we're forgetting it ourselves. You know, and it's just not a way to live. You need to know how to use a map. And you know what? If you go to a point on a map that's two crossroads between two streets, it's the easiest thing in the world. Don't get me, I'm not going to go on any further. Anyway, you get the idea. My first day here, I came over on the 1st, and I've been sleeping here ever since then. I watched my last New Year's Eve over at my old place. It seemed like a nice symbolic gesture. And, you know, I've put a little bit of decoration up, but really I have to strip this terrible, like spongy plastic wallpaper. I just can't stand it. And I did get permission from the landlord to do that, and then repaint everything in some way that's not white. It's going to be probably some sort of brickish orange rust color. And then build shelves. And I was going to get Alexander, my friend Alexander, to help me go order those things. But unfortunately, his whole family, wife, I don't know how many, there's 6 last I heard, with 2 mothers-in-law there, or mothers there. So all got hopefully the mild version of COVID. I haven't talked to them yet. So that's where I am. And what a great place to live. I'm literally 1 minute away, and you can see it in the second video. I am literally 1 minute away from one of the best grocery stores here in town that has so much good stuff and a great kind of deli buffet line with all sorts of really fascinating Georgian stuff. A minute and a half away from its rival, the large Carrefour store right next door, I'm near the really good butcher shop. I am near the place where I can get my packages. It used to be I had to wait for deliveries at my house, but now they're all going to a place less than a block away. The USA to Georgia boxes come into me from different places, including the camera I am now using. You may notice the little weird, black here, the little dots that used to show up aren't showing up anymore because I've got a new camera to use. And there are restaurants. I've had several friends up here, and I've found 2 Chinese restaurants here. But I've invented a new phrase. You know, there's Cantonese and Mandarin. Well, I call these Cartonese because the real name of Georgia is Sakartvelo, land of the Kartvels. Well, so this is Cartonese Chinese food. It's some weird mixture. It's no, you don't say, oh, this is Szechuan. But there's actually a Mexican restaurant that was started by a guy from California, a block and a half from me. One of the gastronomy stores, which has all these European cheeses and all sorts of other stuff. I found absinthe there the other day. Is about 2 blocks from me. There's a really great steakhouse run by South Africans that's about 5 blocks from me. I'm in a good place. The only thing I'm really missing here, well, I can walk to the bus stop in a minute. And on that bus stop, I can pretty much, I know my bus is well enough to go anywhere. So I've got transportation, I've got food, I've got restaurants. Oh yeah, I'm a minute from, I'd say 2.5 minutes from Vake Park, which is one of the largest parks in Georgia. And what else? Well, the only thing really missing is theaters. The movie theaters and theaters for performances. Apart from that, no puppet shows right near me, but I can get on a bus and I'll be at one in a half hour to an hour, depending on the traffic. So, things are going well. My period of discontent is over, and in just a few days, probably by the time you see this, I will be in Prague for 3 weeks discussing my book project related to my documentary on European puppetry called Gravity from Above. You can check out that video. And that's it. Thank you all for your help. Now, of course, there is the one big thing left, and that's to get my container here. And this is why the money that I got from my friend is going to be so important, because the prices have gone up on the container. What I thought would have been $5,000, $6,000, well, I am really afraid to look. I've heard all sorts, everything from $20,000 to $15,000 to $10,000. I'm hoping that by the time I want to get them here in the late summer, that the prices will have dropped by then. Either that or inflation is going to eat up everything. We'll see. But you know what? It's like I say, if things change, you don't stick around to argue. You don't live in the past. You don't go like, oh, why isn't it 2019 anymore? The reason it's not 2019 anymore is because it will never be 2019 again. So, thank you all who have helped and all who are interested in my journey in life. And, I've been going on, but hey, I got 2 more videos to go on with if you want to see the real nuts and bolts of how I moved here. So, take care. Remember, Anadromist means swimming against the stream. And that is what I would like for all of you. Also, for my Georgian Crossroads folks, look around on the Anadromist channel. This is more for ideas. Maybe some of those ideas will be interesting to you. Maybe not. But to you folks, I say, Nachwamdis and Droabit. You'll understand if you spend any time over there.
A people without history is not redeemed from time. For history is a pattern of timeless moments.